Hi, welcome to this, a roundtable conversation with as many of the cast of season 1 as schedules would allow. This is your once-in-a-lifetime chance to sit in on a chat with exceptionally talented creative leaders from a myriad of disciplines, including design, advertising, user research, user experience, product design, animation, industrial design, branding, and even design hiring. And for those of you already tuned into the Awaiting Approval podcast, you'll know that this group has an unmatched pedigree, with client and partner names including Microsoft, Visa, Apple, Disney, Paramount Pictures, Saatchi & Saatchi, Expedia, LinkedIn, BP, Verizon, Twitter, Commerzbank, Vodafone, Dell, Hasbro, Mattel, and many more. So, without further preamble and in alphabetical order, I'm pleased to welcome to the table Dr. Chris Arnold, Laura Baker, Jane Cook, Kevin Frank, Rashmi Lopez, Kevin Parry, Roger Rohatgi, Bill Snebold, Charmaine Wyland, and Dave Zaboski. Hello, everybody. Hi. Thank you so much for joining, and welcome to this roundtable. How is everybody?
So good.
Okay. I'm tired because I was up late last night.
Good, but haven't got COVID yet, but it's running around.
Well, you're doing well. If you've missed out, you're doing well because it's rampant over here right now.
Oh, yes, everyone. My wife's got it.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the test to come through. I'm feeling a bit hoarse today.
Oh, well, fingers crossed that no one gets struck down as we record this. So as long as you can last for the next 60 minutes, it's all good. As we start, I'd love to, like with the episodes, something that just gives those that are listening or watching a flavor for who you are. I'd love if there's something in front of you right now, an object that's on your desk or near you that says something about you. I'd love for you to share. Chris has got something. Chris, tell us about your accordion.
Right. Well, my hobby is music. You might see from guitars in the background. There are quite a lot of them on the wall there. I'm about 32, actually. But I, besides playing in 2 bands, I also do go to a lot of these experimental music clubs in London, the sort of the creative music scene. And we go along, and of course I take the guitar along. But every now and again, I go through the charity shops and look for some weird and wonderful instruments. And I just picked up a zither the other day, but I picked this up for like 50p from a charity shop. So I took it along to the club one night. I said, I've never played it before in my life, so let's just see what happens. And it was great. We had a fantastic time. Other people took it on stage. And just everybody was like, because nobody had one of these. It was just different. So it sort of became a very creative evening. So sometimes my advice from that, if you want some philosophy, is play with a different instrument.
Like so many aspects in life. Thanks, Chris. Charmaine, you had a mug that you were going to talk us through.
Yeah, so this is like super random. This is something that I got from when I worked at Racing Post, and it says hot favorite. Hopefully you can see it on camera. And a lot of it just came to kind of represent sort of the journey that I had at that particular company, because I came in with like a lot of people being very skeptical about design and research. And by the end of it, like my whole team was like, hey, can we work with you guys? So it's one of those things where it's a bit cheeky, but it's also just like a really good representation of like, yeah, just stick with it, have some grit, and, you know, eventually you'll start to win hearts and minds.
I love it. Thank you. Jane, you said you had 2 things.
I did, and I realized when I held it up that I had my background blurred. So I've got about 4 things on there. So this is the first one that I grabbed, was my little Moomin. So this is about 25 years old. With an ex-partner, we were walking along the street, and she found this in the street, and she was like, "It's a Moomin. You have to take it because apparently they're good luck." And I've had it ever since, and it sits on my monitor stand. But and yeah, it started a whole craze of Moomins and all that kind of stuff. But this little one's going nowhere.
Love it. Thank you. Thank you for sharing, everybody. I know it's a little bit sort of show and tell, but it's just a nice way of opening up a little bit to see something that means something. Kevin, you look like you're like super eager to show us. Is that a massive lunchbox?
No, it is a box of plasticine. I just did a commercial project for one of the major video platforms doing old school plasticine claymation. So long live arts and crafts.
Fantastic.
That's
that really
amazing.
reminds me of seeing Temple of Doom as a kid, and then hearing that the minecart chase at the end was all miniatures. And so getting my plasticine out to make my own little Temple of Doom minecart miniatures, and then realizing I have absolutely no way to record that. I went through all the thing of kind of meticulously rebuilding them, only to realize Well, it was fun to do, but I've got no way to kind of capture that. Oh, yes. Go for it, Bill.
This is the original. I don't know if you guys, remembers Heavy Metal Magazine?
Oh, yeah. Yep. I remember that exact issue too.
This is issue number 1, actually. I was such a huge fan. And I guess I don't have a whole lot of stuff in my office. I just moved my office from Agora, where I had a regular, real office, and moved it back home. So through that process, I cleaned out a bunch of things. But I did keep my heavy metals. So I have the one from the very first issue. I have the French issue that it was based on, and then some other random issue from April 1978. But I always loved these things, and they were a huge inspiration when I was in high school. So that if it says anything about me, I'm not sure what it says. I always loved that stuff.
Fantastic. And great that you've got the French version. Like, I love that kind of thing where someone is so has such a love, such a fondness for something that they start to kind of spread out to different languages or different variants or different versions. Rashmi, I think you were on the verge of showing us something.
Sure, yeah. I don't know if you can see it through my blur, but I have this like tote bag that I made for Media Temple. Actually this campaign won me an award, but Kevin's arts and crafts kind of just reminded me, because it's turned into my like arts and crafts bag that I just kind of like tote with me places. So I've got like paintbrushes in here. I've got like paints, sketchbooks, all of my crazy sketchbooks and pens and everything in here. So it makes it like really nice. And it's just like a nice little circle around moment for me, using that bag.
I call that my rig. Like I've got, yeah, like it's just got, I can go for 5 days with all my art supplies. I got watercolors and paintbrushes and pens and stuff. It's never far away from making something creative. I love that.
Yours is like a art survival kit.
Totally.
You don't need food, just paints and brushes, right?
I just got to have a bag that I got all my art supplies in, and then I can make some art and buy some food with it.
I need to get back to that, man. That just, away from the technical, just get back to the creation part of it, where you're just taking pencil or pen, whatever, and paper and just doing it.
Well, you said you were in Agora. I mean, I know we're kind of from all over the world, but I'm like 20 minutes from there in Chatsworth. So you want to play? We should go play.
Yeah, it sounds like a good idea. Well, I live in Calabasas, so I'm even closer than that, actually.
You're even closer. Yeah, you're 15 minutes from me.
Look at this.
Let's go to the game.
For literally connecting people all over the globe 15 minutes apart. I love it. Roger, were you on the verge of pulling something to show?
No. I will say that the thing that actually inspired me by what you just said earlier was a throwback to our days of the Indiana Jones Temple of Doom stuff. And I happen to have something that I thought you'd think was kind of cool here in my office. So, I love Indiana Jones, and you may not be able to see that, but the thing that I have here is a complete replica of the Temple of Doom. I don't know why I didn't have this when I was a kid. They didn't let me have it, but it was like signed Indiana Jones. Anyway, but listen, I'm all about the adventure. So I got super nerdy with you, man. But you mentioned Temple of Doom, and I was like, wait, hold on. I'm too nerdy to not mention that I've totally lived my life like I was Indiana Jones. So there you go.
I love it. Yes. I love it. In the words of Salah, you are the monarch of the sea. I once had an opportunity, this is a random side note, I once had an opportunity to bid on some of the actual minecarts and little oil drum barrel miniatures from the movie. And, my pocket money back then, I could afford maybe a 20th of what the items eventually went for in the auction. But it was really fun to kind of see those for real after having such a fondness for that whole franchise. As we talked through these, we mentioned about that idea of just being able to kind of pounce on creativity. And Bill, you were talking about kind of getting away from digital and moving back in. I'd love if anyone wants to share to know, like, the last piece of creative work in any discipline that you made that sort of made you stop and feel something. Like as you were making it, or maybe after you'd finished and you look back at it. But it doesn't, for all of us who've been in this for so long, I don't know about you guys, but for me, it takes something special to kind of knock me off the autopilot road and to come back and go, oh, wow, I'm really proud of that, or I really love doing that. Dave?
Yeah, I'm in the middle of a really fascinating project right now with a philosopher called Forrest Landry. And Forrest Landry has these philosophies that go so deep that they become kind of esoteric. And my job is to make them accessible to, let's say, a 14-year-old. So I'm working on this graphic novel right now, and I'm probably 150 pages into it. I probably have another 50 to go. But it's a graphic novel on how to teach young people to make better choices not based on depression, frustration, anger, or fear, but choices based on love. And so I'm storyifying this philosophy that's pretty deep into a kind of Wizard of Oz-like journey through the emotions, and learning about how to make better decisions. So it's kind of world building. There's dirigibles and characters and rhinoceros, which is a rhinoceros horse zebra. And so it's a really fun project that I think is both, inside of my wheelhouse and drawing and world building and storytelling, and something that can be a real contribution in helping people make better decisions about their lives in the world.
Wow, what a fantastic project to work on. How did that come about?
I met this philosopher about a year ago and really loved his ideas, but they're deep and tricky. And I've done a couple of projects. I did a children's book with Deepak Chopra on universal consciousness. So it's kind of one of my fortes is to be able to take complex things and simplify them. And so doing like a 30-page children's book on universal consciousness, there's a challenge to that. And I think that this is the same thing. And we really hit it off. I mean, it's philosophies on how to choose from love. And so, yeah, that's like something that I'm really inspired by. And as we talked about his ideas, narrative ideas started to pop up. Could we make it a journey through the emotions? And so it's sort of a slow build, but we're in this place now where I'm on the last chapter now. I'd be delighted to share it all with you as I get closer. But it's something that sort of builds slowly and iterates itself into being. I don't know how the story ends, so we're still in that creative process.
Fantastic. What a purposeful project to kind of work on. It's really good. And it makes me wonder, Kevin. Oh, good. I'm pleased. Kevin, Frank.
Yes.
When you had sent the final draft of your book off, what was the feeling for you then?
Wow, thank you for giving me the opening to talk about my book. I figured since Dave broke the ice on that, I didn't want to sound too pluggy. But I don't know, like both. Is there a word that combines excitement and terrified? Like excitified, excited, whatever that feeling is. I wrote it like Dave because I felt like I had something to share with the world and something that I thought would be really helpful for existing and future leaders to hear, because I didn't think they heard it in other places. And so I really believed that I was going to do some good in the industry. And at the same time, I'm thinking to myself, well, who am I to say this? Like I didn't found an agency. I ran teams, but I didn't run like 1,000-person teams. So yeah, it was that combination of sort of knowing that I think they're at least thinking I had done the right thing and hoping that I had done the right thing.
I was going to jump in there, Kevin. That's really good that in one sense, in terms of you writing that, because how many of us have been to conferences or read books where it is people who are CDOs of massive teams, and that's all really great to hear about, but how can you apply that to most people were not working with teams that big, or in structures of that kind of rigor or loftiness. So yeah, don't discount anything that you're writing. You have just as much of a right to sit there and go through your experience as anybody else.
Thank you for saying that. Again, like I sometimes forget. I just was trying to write something that was helpful, but yeah, it's hard to your point. Like it's hard to stack yourself up against CEOs sometimes.
I completely understand that, but I think it's also hard because we stack ourselves up against ourselves, right? We're up against what we the sort of vision or the goals or the version of ourselves that we think we are not acting as, when to the rest of the world we are, right? But to ourselves, we're like, oh, we're not there yet. We're not doing enough yet. We're not doing as well yet. We haven't achieved this goal. We haven't achieved that goal. And the reality is actually we just haven't sat down and looked at what we have achieved and taken stock and given time to take on board everything that's gone before and why we are then in the positions that we are to write a book or to work on this project of that Dave talks about, or whatever it might be, right? Charmaine, you've also just recently published a book in a very different sphere. Like, tell us a little bit about the feeling of completing that and getting that out.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is not a comparison to the other two because it's just going to seem so dinky. So I apologize in advance. I think in terms of the book, I've basically written, designed, tested, and photographed a cookbook, which anybody who's ever worked with me knows that I tend to bring in treats into work, mostly as a way to sit there and deal with stress. But the whole notion of the book was to kind of round up all that together. But there's kind of two parts to it. One of it is so many people are now finding ways or choosing to stay indoors more than going out to the bars, especially pre-COVID. So it's a way of kind of saying, well, if you're going to stay indoors on a Friday evening or something like that, here's some things you can do. But the main crux of it is combining sweet treats with complimentary cocktails. So here's your sweet treat and here's a cocktail that works well with it. I think the biggest thing for doing it outside of just, hey, I got all these recipes in my head, I need to get them out and just see what people think of it, was so nice to sit there and work on something where you have a tangible result at the end of it. So, some of you guys get to work in physical media, and I haven't had that luxury since really kind of moving into digital product in years. So it was nice to work in like tangible media and actually like, oh yeah, I do know how to design for a print page and have something that just, you can really sit there and yeah, feel it more than anything else. I think there's a certain different sense of accomplishment with that than when you're working in digital media, because oftentimes digital media is so ephemeral. It's gone next week, next month, next year.
Laura, changing lanes a little bit, when you think about recording your episode and seeing everything that's happened with awaiting approval for season 1, what surprised you most about being part of this?
That you asked me to be a part of it was a lovely surprise, I would say, to start with, Adam. So I definitely think you can do that, and you've gathered. I mean, I know not everyone is here, but you've gathered such a great group of people, and I think maybe it's not a surprise to me knowing you and kind of, but I think the breadth of insight, the breadth of kind of backgrounds, it was a really lovely way of kind of rounding out such a kind of a wide view of kind of creativity and creative leadership. And I think it was really lovely how, I mean, I didn't realize at the time. I was asking, like listening back, I'm like, that same question. But those same questions gave such a breadth of different answers, and we were able to kind of go down different paths. And it was really lovely just to see how people reacted to the same questions that I was asked, and the kind of variance of experience that there was. So maybe not a surprise, but there was a delight, I would say, maybe more so.
Oh, good. I'm really glad. Anybody else have anything that sort of came up for you or surprised you about being part of this?
I just want to say to Charmaine that she shouldn't minimize her accomplishment with the cookbook. I mean, I think that's really a great achievement. Anytime you produce your own book, and I think that's really fantastic, and more power to you.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
I was just going to add, Adam, to that question. One of the things that completely surprised me, and I think I put it in the group chat, and I have to mention it on here, was the fact that my mum gave it so much airtime and had a really good time with it, and gave me this little pep talk about, oh, you were, really good on that. And I was like, what? So kind of got a bit of an insight into, maybe she understood for the first time, what it is I do. Maybe I don't know, but that was a complete surprise. But it also really, it kind of touched me, really quite deep, that she made that effort, and she said, oh yeah, and I showed so and so and so and so, and they were like, all right, I didn't know your daughter did this, and then there was some kind of like feedback, and it was almost quite nice to get the feedback from totally outside of your circle and your sphere, and just to see like a, I don't know if it was like an honest reaction, but definitely that kind of, instinctive gut reaction. And that just kind of warmed me, and I just kind of carried it through, and yeah. So I thought it needed a mention. Not that I told my mum I was going to plug her, but yeah.
Well, hey,
complete
Jane, if she's watching, or she's going to watch this, hi, Jane's mom. I think
Oh
we should all
yeah,
say
Jane's mom.
Hello.
Yes, you know what? She probably will, because she's following the whole thing. But yeah. So I think, and also no, on a more serious note, I think it showed just kind of the kind of audience and the consumers that we reach, and maybe we're not mindful of it when we're kind of doing what we do. But I think she is a kind of user out there, and her tech knowledge and the stuff that she was telling me she was doing and following. So I think that's another reminder to just kind of not write your kind of audience off and assume that you know who they are. So kind of two things that surprised me massively, and two really nice kind of learnings as well.
I did send mine to my two brothers and asked them to listen to it, but I live in hope they ever will.
I know. Get my mum to connect with them.
I send it to your mum.
She'll sort it out. It's fine.
I remember, Jane, you putting in the group chat for the whole of this cast that you think that your mum has finally twigged what it is you do, and that resonated so much. So I love the fact that she was able to see your episode and get it from the conversation that you were having, and that's her hearing your voice talking about what you do and what you've done and the experiences that you've had. So I really love that. Was there anyone else that had really lovely feedback from friends or family about the episode that they had?
My kids said they loved it, so I don't know. I'm not sure how much they watched, but that's the
a
only
high
feedback I really
compliment.
got. Yeah. As opposed to saying, "Oh, that was so cringy. What'd you do? What is this?"
I'll just really quick say, this was my first podcast appearance, ever. And it really amazed me how, listening back to my own episode, I was like, who is that? That person sounds smart. I don't know if that surprised anybody else, but, I felt very proud of what all the questions you asked, Adam, and then also hearing, like Laura was saying, listening back to everybody else's episode and listening how smart and the breadth of experience everybody has, and then hearing mine amongst all of that, it just kind of elevated something within me, so I hope that I hope that anybody gets that experience for themselves one day. This is really cool.
I'm really pleased. And I think I have said this to each and every one of you individually, and I don't think any of you will mind me telling the rest of you or any of those watching or listening that I've said this to all of you, but you are so worthy of being here within this group, each and every one of you. You have all done amazing things. You have all achieved and striven, if that's even a word, through this creativity mess that is a career in the creative industries. And I'm incredibly proud of the combination of everyone that we have here. And I think like you all know, my goal for each episode was that is the story arc of you from beginning to where you are right now. But my goal for the whole season was that you can dip in and out of any creative discipline and find things that align with where you are, the listener, right now, and where you want to be, or how someone has got to where you want to get to, or how they've dealt with the problem that you've got on your plate right now. And I think that selecting all of you to be part of this was purposeful, in that I know that you all have a reason to be here. You all have earned your place, if you like, in this. You've all achieved amazing things. So I just wanted to reiterate that to all of you. In fact, do it publicly on this. Like I'm really touched that all of you said that you would do this. So thank you. Roger, you were going to say something.
Yeah, no, thank you, Adam. And I was going to say some things that I'm not surprised about. I'm not surprised at how authentic it was, just knowing you, and how authentic you are, Adam, and how amazing you are as a host. And so, the authenticity that came through in everybody's stories and everybody's podcast talk episode was so special, because really of who you are and how you knew what to ask and how you pulled us together in so many ways. So it's totally not surprised about that, but I hope people will take away something really special from that authenticity. I think I wasn't surprised, but also pleasantly excited about the way that this podcast grew so fast, and all the updates that we got from you about the milestones it was hitting, the numbers it was hitting, of people downloading or watching or whatever, and all the charting that was happening as it was rising the charts, I think was really cool to see. Also not surprising, just knowing you and knowing this crew and all the things that I've, and everybody's gotten to see from different episodes, but very amazing to be a part of, I think. And I think the last thing for me was how relatable it was for me, and I'm sure for so many. I had thrown on the little Indiana Jones hat earlier or whatever, but in my career, I've definitely felt like I was running around trying to find answers to all the problems that people were, throwing at us in design. So Raiders of the Lost Answers, really, at the end of the day. And, while you're outrunning boulders of, things that are coming from stakeholders and issues, and it seemed like everybody had been able to overcome these challenges. They were able to swing with their, proverbial whip across the chasm of misunderstandings of what creativity or design really is. And endured some of those things. I remember being in a conversation with an executive one time when we were talking about all the things that design could do and the investment that was needed, and they said, so when does design stop? That when does it end? When do we stop investing? And having people like all of you on this call and all of us being the champions saying actually never. We have to iterate, continue to be creative, and we continue to fight for what humans need and what people need at their very core. Is great to be part of this crew, this tribe, and of course, kudos to you, Adam, for putting that together. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm not going to do my normal thing. I'm going to accept that. Say thank you so much. Changing lanes a little bit, much like we did in all of your episodes, kind of going a little bit more serious now. What are you mentioned about the challenges of a career in the creative industries, Roger? Like, whoever would love to answer this, please feel free. But what do you see your peers struggling with in the industry right now? Where are the biggest challenges, and are they specific to your discipline, or are they sort of prevalent across all the creative industries? Chris?
I think finance, economic, we're an industry, like many industries, where the economics has a real impact. And if you go back sort of 30 years ago, it was lush for money. We're in an industry that is incredibly tight on budget now, and tight on time. And, there's a lot of other factors. Let's not just bore people with AI, but it is one of many factors that is driving people and clients wanting stuff faster, cheaper. I think the thing that also links to that is mediocrity. I think we're in a big danger that we're seeing a world where mediocrity is becoming acceptably normal. And I think that's a real problem when people say, oh, that will do. And I think that's the challenge. It's, we've got lack of money, we're trying to do things faster and cheaper, and we've got clients saying, well, I can do this myself for half the price because I've now downloaded some AI. I'm using some AI studio around the corner. And this whole thing of giving this average that comes out of that is coming acceptable to a lot of clients. So I think that's one of the challenges. May not affect every industry, but I certainly think it's affecting the industry I'm in.
I was going to jump in really quickly and say I fully agree with what Chris was saying, because in terms of what I'm saying, it's a combination of the pressure in terms of the finances, but and also the issues in terms of mediocrity. But it's also the thing of so many people are having to come up with so much more with so much less. Especially right now, it feels like it's all been super amplified in the last 12 months. Lots of factors for that. But also the thing I find really interesting though is I sort of feel like there's a rebellion starting to kick up, not even just with the creatives, but also the people who are at the end user, because it, to the point of the mediocrity, everything starts to look the same, and then one brand becomes another. So how do you stand out? And are people? There's discussions going on of like, how do we make this more tangible? How do we make this more human? How do we make this more handmade? How do we make this more creative? Is starting to kind of kick up. So it'll be interesting to see where the economics versus kind of that quiet rebellion that might become bigger kicks in.
Well, I think that's where the opportunity, where ideas, creativity, different, actually has more of an opportunity, because when everything's very creative, it's hard to stand out. The heyday of design and advertising and cinema and writing, creativity doesn't stand out so much when everyone's being creative. Whenever it's becoming very bland as it is, I think then people do things, and when they see the massive results they get from that, so their product goes to number one, then they're going to say, what are they doing? And all the competitors are going, maybe we need some of this creativity. So maybe it could work, as you say, in a flip way. It sort of actually works to our benefit in the long term.
I think we're really going through a transition period right now. I as far as creativity and finance, the economy and everything. I struggle with this because I feel like I'm an early adopter of AI, and but I have mixed feelings about the whole thing and what's going on. And I use AI as almost like a partner, and I don't see it as a replacement for human creativity at all. Most of the stuff I see that is AI designed is dreadful. I'm seeing a whole lot of what they're calling AI slop out there now. Meta's released this app where it's just nothing but AI videos. I think now we got Sora that's has its own app too for doing almost the same thing. And in there, I do see things where people are being creative using AI though. So we came to this point where we're starting to see more and more AI generated video content, and
it looks like Bill's run out of AI credits halfway through what he was saying.
Voices were wooden, but have I stopped?
You're back again now.
Okay. What I was saying is,
well, I've got a blooper reel at least.
It is really silly. I came across it were various animals jumping off a high dive or diving boards, and it was AI generated, and I was fairly entertained. And I just like, okay, there you go. There's something. It's entertaining. It didn't really look phony at all. It looked like actual animals, like cats and dogs and giraffe, all doing their little thing and diving into a pool off a diving board. I just thought was genuinely entertaining. I think there's something there. I think there's various new ways of using this tool, and at the same time, I'm terrified. I'm terrified of where it's going from this point, how much the algorithms are going to learn about human behavior and mesh that into the capabilities of AI that's just ever improving, and how it's going to circumvent human creativity, because like Chris was saying, people think it's good enough. And there's lots of people that watch really bad sitcoms, and there's tons of it around, and it's cheap to make. But then you have just a few people. It doesn't matter what time period in history, it's always been that way. Anyone can grab a camera and snap a picture. It doesn't make them an artist, and it's not art, but it's just we're inundated by it. And it's not AI generated. We're inundated by it. So there's always just a few people out there that have, who have creativity that rise above and break through, and who's your Michelangelos and your Picassos and all these people. And we just have to accept that there's people want to express themselves and only a few people do it really, really well.
Rashmi, you raised your hand.
I did. I was hanging on every word of Bill's, so I didn't want to interrupt.
Please push back.
No, never. So yeah, kind of just building upon that, and what I heard some of the others say here is like, and just kind of bringing up a story that actually just happened this week. I had a former mentee from, I used to be a mentor at a UX boot camp. And she decided to book some time with me. And what I'm hearing in her story to me is a lot of the same story that I'm hearing in a lot of other designers, regardless of level. And, Chris said it perfectly, is that the financial aspect is having us, very much job hug. So she was in this kind of spot where she was looking for a job for over a year and a half and finally found one, and found, unfortunately, that it's a toxic environment. And wait a second, what do I do now? And seeing, there's a problem here about what people value, like how design is valued, how creativity is valued, particularly in the workspace. And also, well, as a creative, what do we do with that? How do we operate and move through this so that we can also survive on the thing that has helped us survive up to this point? So I feel like there's a very interesting struggle going on here. But yeah, Charmaine, you put it, I see kind of a rebellion, a brewing as well, which is actually kind of exciting to me. I'd love to see where it goes. So yeah, just throwing that in there. I think it's a shared struggle that we're having to understand the value of creativity and how we now operate in this kind of new space that's happening.
So I might push back a little bit on some of this. So I sort of see the world of AI has kind of three aspects to it that I've encountered. One is music, one's words, and the other is pictures. And music, I don't do a whole lot in the world of music. They already have their systems for provenance and sampling, and I think it's a mess that they're working on. It's not really my realm. Pictures is, and I'm a pretty hard no on any commercial use for pictures in machine learning. And the other piece I want to mention is I do not think about this as artificial intelligence. I don't think it's an intelligence. I think that where we bring intelligence, that's where we come in. And more than intelligence, I think what we bring as humans is care. I think one of the challenges I see in the sort of tech world itself is that there is a lack of care. Now, the words part, so music, pictures, and words. Pictures, hard no. You can prompt a page of text and nobody's going to look at that page of text and go, oh man, these 7 words are Kurt Vonnegut from Galapagos and these 10 words are J.K. Rowling's that you've stolen. They won't do that. But if you prompt a page of an image, I can look at that image and go, oh, wow, that's Carla Ortiz over here. And this is Jake Parker over here. Like, I know personally the artists whose stuff has been scraped to get the results. And so for me, the commercial use of AI imagery or machine learning imagery, I think is a hard no. And in my industry, it is the third rail. Now, words, on the other hand, pretty amazing, maybe even a miracle, maybe even the greatest technology this world has ever known. We have digitized and then indexed and rapidly able to access the indexing of mostly Western civilization, mostly above the equator, and mostly for light-skinned people. And that amount of information is pretty exciting. It has its limitations, like it has its hallucinations and its biases. But I do think that there are things we don't know that we can use this tool to get some wisdom out of it, to maybe get some Socratic prompts. Instead of using it as just a glorified Google, maybe you ask it a question like, hey, I've got some challenges with my career. Can you help me ask me some clarifying questions on my story around money, for example? So I think that there are tools here that young people, or people who've been laid off because of this technology, can use this as a tool to gain wisdom and clarity about who they are, what their purpose is, what they want to create for their lives in the world before they go to tell me what I should do. I think that there's some pretty exciting things with this technology, but I think that, where I'm feeling it is that it has power and transaction, but it doesn't have care. And that's what we as creatives need to bring and need to remind our clients that as amazing as these technologies are, the technology itself doesn't inherently carry care. And that's what we do.
Thank you, Dave. Kevin, you had your hand. Kevin Parry.
Yes. Yeah. Going back to, you were asking about the challenges people in our industries are facing. And coming from the social media world, for what I do, I'm seeing, with this onslaught of, AI slop and creativity in quotes at the click of a button, it's getting harder and harder to stand out, to get your work seen. And the challenge I'm seeing is that a lot of artists are simply treating social media like a portfolio, post my work and walk away, post my work, walk away, kind of the old way of how things were done, going back to, paper portfolios. And the most success I'm seeing nowadays, and what I'm trying to incorporate a lot, is adding and injecting myself into the story, the artwork. So I'm not just making a video about the artwork and posting, I'm injecting the process of how I'm doing it and the ideation and all the kind of humanity and care that Dave is talking about. So that's my input on where this rebellion might be going, is that it's harder to separate the art from the artist. I mean, injecting myself is proving all those aspects and the process that go into it. This is coming from someone who's still doing old school stop motion animation and not giving up against technology. So by injecting myself and saying, oh, this was so difficult and this is how much time I spent and I'm carving this little thing, people find that fascinating.
Thank you, Kevin. Start again. With all these challenges that we've talked about with emerging technology and what they mean for creativity and the human touch, Roger, where do you stand with all of this? What's your insight here?
Yeah, no, I appreciate you asking, Adam, and I really respect all the views and people, the things people have shared, because there are these, real, true, genuine feelings and challenges. As somebody who's kind of made the transition from, leading a lot of design in my career to now focus on leading AI at a company that is bringing together what I believe is called human-centered AI. And trying to merge UX and AI together, that world of what I call AX, is quite interesting to see what's happening right now. And we're really deep right now with a lot of demand from companies and a lot of C-suite and leaders around agentic AI agents, but for really practical things, And I know that we talk a lot about the challenges that AI is bringing, but there's this other side about what the challenges that AI is actually solving and what that actually looks like. And I'll give you kind of various degrees of that, right? So I'll talk about, some of the business applications in a minute, but we're also seeing, the more practical side where, we have AI agents that are trying to solve really deep infrastructure and process problems in steel and manufacturing, of all places, to challenges with sales and quoting and a myriad of other areas. And so these are, again, areas where we believe that they are human needs, human problems, and we're trying to solve human problems using AI tools to be able to make a difference or reverse a situation or fix broken processes or whatever. But what we're also seeing is, even with that demand, even with that opportunity to fix it, there's a whole other side of companies that aren't ready. They want AI, but when you get in to them, the data is full of issues. The integrations are disconnected. the processes are broken, and people are disoriented anyway in what they're doing, and so there's no way to really quickly get in and integrate AI into their ecosystem. So you're seeing, or we're seeing, like this pendulum swing back and forth across all of this, and from industry to solutions that are helping humanity. But I would say that the most important thing that I can think about is, and it goes back to what some of the crew has been saying here, is that at the end of the day, how do we really build this out for humans, or remember what we really need to be able to get us there? Adam, you heard me say on our talk, that that design and those that think in a way that put humans at the center of the equation are the most important some of the most important people that we need right now in tech, and they're sometimes the ones that are being overlooked or pushed out the most. But the reason I say that is because I believe that the UX of today is needed for the AI of tomorrow. In essence, that lens of human behavior and understanding humans deeply is needed, as well as understanding the experience deeply, more than ever, to differentiate what AI can do and how it can help people instead of just a bottom line.
Thanks, Roger. Taking all of that combined, or everyone's perspective, and thinking about the fact that we all come from quite different creative disciplines. What do we feel about a creative career ladder? Is that still a thing for your discipline? Jane, I'll throw to you first.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I suppose for someone that's been out of the more physical side, it's been a while since I designed a Barbie doll. So yeah, I'm not sure if it exists, if the job titles are there anymore. I'm just kind of putting myself back into that physical space, and I think that there is still an abundance of creativity, and I think there's a drive within the community to want to go to next levels, but I'm not sure if the kind of titles that we knew, which equated to some kind of a career journey or a career ladder, whether they exist, and whether that's you've got maybe two camps of people saying, well, I'm not sure where I go. I kind of thought that we would just take this route, and maybe the other camp is saying, well, that's okay because it's all kind of just up in the air and it's up for grabs, and what does a title mean anyway? Does it equate to this means I'm doing really well here or really well here, or I'm going to be better if I'm at this position or that ladder? And I'm not sure, actually, going back to maybe even before your question, if I think about it, does the physical space even exist? I mean, the realms are so blurred. And if I think to, picking up a physical Barbie doll and trying to design stuff around it, it's so blurred now. I don't even know if perhaps a junior industrial designer now is even thinking in that space of, some fabric and plastics and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's, in a good way, it's blurred. I think there's tools that maybe could help with that, 3D perspective, but I think it's perhaps going back to industrial design. What does it mean? That's where I would start with that. I don't know. Don't ask me what the answer is to that. but I think you'd need to explore that. Is it AI? Is it digital? Is it UX? It's probably an amalgamation of everything. Do you call it industrial design? Is it design for products? Is it design for humans? So I think it's just blown. I think we'll end it there because I'm getting a bit deep. 7 o'clock.
It's interesting that you mentioned about the physical space as well, because I saw this morning a post on LinkedIn came up in my feed, and the gist of this guy's post was, I will fight to the death not to go back into an office space. And I thought that was really interesting, that there was someone that was so vehemently against being in a physical space with other creatives, because I feel like more and more a lot of us are saying, you know what, actually I need some of that to some degree, to get in a room every now and again and just feel that physical closeness in terms of a creative process. So it's interesting that that kind of comes up for you in the middle of that. Kevin, Frank, you raised your hand.
So back to your question about the ladder. I mean, I think certainly in advertising agencies and brand side, like the ladder, it very much exists. But I think there's a need for a new ladder. I don't think the question is like the ladder there or not there, but like what is the new ladder? And for me speaking, well, two things. One, we've obviously been talking about AI because that's what everybody talks about. I think that a new track for AI within advertising and marketing has to exist, just like when the internet was invented, all of a sudden there was a new track for UX and UI and customer experience. But beyond that, I think all of those tracks right now are set up from, you were an independent contributor and then you were a manager, and management / leadership equals success. And I'd love to see a different model where, yes, absolutely, you can go from, writer or art director or designer to senior writer or art director or designer to ACD to ECD to CCO, whatever the traditional path. But, management is not for everybody. It's a totally, totally different thing than being a creative. And so some creatives really like it. And some creatives really like it. But some creatives really don't like it, and they just want to continue to be creatives, but they feel like they have to go into management because there's no other way forward. So I would love to see a splitting in the track to say, like, yeah, you can go be, creative to the senior most level and never have to manage a person if that's not where your heart is, where your passion is. And if it turns out that you do really like that, then yeah, there's still that track for you. So yeah, I mean, the ladder still exists, but I think we need to build new ladders as well.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm not sure where the ladder is these days. I mean, I'm talking to, I'm actually looking for a permanent role somewhere. I'd love to get back into working with a group of people because I kind of miss that. I've been on my own for a while, and I do get to work with people occasionally, kind of like we're doing now in almost a virtual way. It was always, on the phone, over email, whatever. But being in a shared space with other creatives definitely has an allure. You want to be able to, it's that human connection, right? And be able to bounce ideas back and forth and get those critiques right there in your face. It's really helpful for building things. I mean, when I was at Paramount, I remember there was definitely a ladder because we had, that may have been just because of our group and how we were structured and the leadership there. But we had a woman that was running a hot dog cart who was interested in getting into design and working in our group. And she was taking classes. And, she was like outside our door. We'd buy things from her every day. And eventually she joined our group and she went on to, have a career in entertainment advertising and doing well for herself. So that ladder definitely was there before. If I talk to people now, they're just finding that the budgets are getting squeezed, like Chris was talking, and they're finding AI because clients are aware of AI and how you can, might not be using it for the final piece, but for doing kind of some idea generation, for generating just proposals and that sort of thing, and getting things out there quickly, the client take a look at and make decisions on before they go forward and actually build something out. They're just finding they have to do more with less, and they're looking for how they can keep their existing staff and not letting too many other people go. So definitely there's a squeeze out there, and I think that might be just because my industry and the way it's getting hit with streaming. The streaming services, I think, have come to the point where they're the various services are eating each other. There's only a few eyeballs, and so many people that want to pay monthly on these things. They'll pay for Disney Plus for a month to see what they want to see, and then they get out, right? So there's definitely the squeeze going on. So I'm wondering what's going on going forward with this so-called ladder. It might be good for an option for some people to look into becoming a plumber or electrician. Something that is actually required and that robots haven't replaced yet.
Well, they are going to replace. They've now got robots that do plumbing.
Oh, do they? Okay,
Yeah,
I
they
missed
do.
that story.
RoboPlum.
Yeah.
Charmaine, you were next.
Yeah, so I'm going to be a bit controversial here, just because I've worked in kind of a few unstable industries. So working in very creative focused industries like advertising, when I was an art director and that sort of thing, you had a very kind of clear ladder and that sort of thing, and all the points that were kind of brought up about, hey, you're a great IC and all you've got in terms of advancement is management, and that sucks if you all you want to do is be an IC, or you're not really a people person. But I think the thing that I'm seeing, especially with the transition into product, and this, it's kind of obvious with startups, but even bigger companies, is mostly just, anytime design or research tries to install some sort of career ladder a couple quarters down, think, hey, we're going through a restructure, let's just wipe all of that out, and it's so hard to get a foothold to figure out like how you want to structure things. And even beyond that, like every 18 months, titles change. Like my title has changed so much. Oh, I'm a multimedia designer, I'm a digital designer, I'm a UI designer, I'm a UX UI designer, I'm a product designer, all this sort of stuff. So I think there's a challenge, especially in the tech sphere, partially because very few companies have design and research on their own as their own column. They usually report into tech or product and that sort of thing. And so that creates a weird place to try to create a ladder, because it's not seen as here's a distinct discipline. It's just sort of a service within another discipline at a lot of companies. So I think that makes it a challenge to sit there and try to figure out any sort of ladder that's consistent across companies. Partially because also the needs are different, and then also the UX maturity is different, or the willingness to see design as, hey, this is valuable versus this is prettiness, is just so varied. Like, I can't speak to the other industries that you guys are in, but definitely in tech, I just feel like you have a harder time trying to get any sort of consistent ladder in place, or to figure out how long that ladder is going to last once you do, because of shifting sands of revenue, or private equity pressures, etc. So it's one of those things where it's hard to come up with a ladder, and just by extension of that, for especially UX and UI, there isn't the same sort of I guess qualifications, or like there's no codification of exactly this is what you need in order to be considered a senior designer anywhere you go. It's not codified anywhere. Yes, people have degrees in various things related to UX or UI or design and that sort of thing, but how many people in teams I've run where it's like, I have somebody who's sat there and he's done a PhD in human interaction, sitting there designing all these really great UX flows alongside somebody who'd taken a 6-week boot camp, and that's it. And it's just, and that's not to be snobby, it's just more of like, but what are the qualifications here? What is, how are we judging when people are at levels when you have that kind of difference of background or experience? So I'm going to rain on everybody's parade with that.
But especially, as a hiring manager, like that's a conundrum that you have to figure out for yourself, right? Because I think it's probably fair to say that most organizations will have some kind of documentation as to what this level means, whether they stick to it or not, whether that's applied consistently from one hiring manager to another or not, is an entirely different question.
Well,
Chris,
also you
sorry.
also just don't have consistency across the industry. So a senior designer one place could be completely different from another. So I think that's one of the things that also doesn't help us in terms of establishing consistent ladders anywhere, is because there's not consistency within the industry. Sorry about that.
No, it makes perfect sense, and I concur with painful experience.
Yeah, I agree that I think we need a complete rethink about the whole thing about hierarchy. And I'm going to wear my other hat, which is my big champion of neurodiversity, because I've employed a lot of neurodiverse people. And I think I never dreamt that when I become a creative director and executive creative director, that actually the job, if someone described the job beforehand, I would have said, no way, stay away from it. But, you grow into it. But I do think it then pushes you down on the creativity. So I think there is a kind of way of rethinking the whole thing that needs to be rethought. And I don't know, maybe it's technology that's going to offer the management aspect of it in time. Maybe that's something AI will do for us, so we can actually focus more time. But I always have this struggle between, my love is actually doing creative stuff, whatever it is, combined with the fact that I do have to sit there and go do financial reports. I do have to write emails. I do have to organize teams. I do have to deal with people's problems. I do have to worry about this and that and write documents. And it's a kind of juggling act. So I think we need a complete rethink. And I think we used to get away from this old school idea of going up and up and up until finally the teacher becomes a great teacher and then finally becomes a terrible headmaster, which is what often happens so often.
I think I saw a post a few months ago, maybe a year ago even, someone saying, isn't it weird how the first AI tools that have been made are to replace the act of creativity, not the act of management? I wonder who made that decision. And I thought that was quite an amusing little sort of anecdote. Kevin, take us home on this creative career ladder conversation.
Yeah, I can't speak too much to the state of the ladder other than, in my relatively shorter career, I've been on a few that have fallen apart. Movies get canceled, budgets get slashed, all that kind of stuff. But just my experience with almost jumping off the ladder. I worked on a number of movies, built up an audience online, stopped all that, started doing my own thing. So I'm just a guy in a basement making cool stuff. And the perception of that, the questions I get are mostly one, you make money from that? That's mostly what people think. Mostly probably because I'm not on a ladder. And yeah, I've built a great career. And then second, they always associate it with climbing. It's like, okay, so one day you want to work on a movie. And my response is that, well, I get to sit in my basement and my baby and my toddler upstairs, and I get to go upstairs and see them whenever I want. And I have a really great setup here. I don't think I want to get back on that ladder that I was on previously. So maybe one day, but for this season of life, this is a great, I feel like I'm floating in a void of space, feeling my way around. There's no ladder anywhere near my feet, but, I don't have a grand point with that other than, I'm one of the people who has maybe jumped off and is feeling out day by day, kind of the new territory.
I love that. And as someone with an entrepreneurial spirit, like I completely get that the draw towards creating a lifestyle that pays the bills and, gets all of that kind of logistical side of things done, but gives me time to spend time with family or to spend time taking a rest to recharge or whatever it might be, that a more traditional career path that might impact negatively on. So I completely understand. Dave, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I think that, Kevin, you represent a kind of new economy. And, we were just saying, well, maybe we need to rethink this a little bit. Kevin, I'm sure you probably have a team to a degree. Is that correct? Or is it just, are you completely solo on this?
I have an agent, but the creative work is all me.
Right. But like an editor or anything like that? Do you have like that? All right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I mean, I think that's an amazing exception to build what you have as a solo entrepreneur. I mean, I know a couple other sort of influencer educators that they have a team of 5 to 10 people with editors and animators and to help with the script and things like that, that this is kind of a new economy. Like we have this little brick that we carry in our pockets that has access to people without having to work on distribution channels. At Disney, you had to have the distribution first and then you could make the movie because you had a place for it. But now we have this really different approach to things. I don't know how that works with the agency. I don't know how it works with ladders. But I do think if you're going to rethink things, then there are new media like these social channels that people are making a living at. That is a really different approach than our money for hours spent kind of thing. So maybe the rethinking is smaller teams for bigger projects. We had thousands of 1,000 people working on a film. I mean, you can do a feature film with 6. There's a guy named Denver Jackson who's got on his second or third film that he's done by himself, feature-length film. So we have these tools now that can help that. I mean, AI, I'm still not a fan of it, but I think that some of the technology that we have can offer us the potential to have bigger stories with smaller teams.
I think, and just to kind of close this off, to your point, Dave, the thing that surprises me still, even though I know it's a lucrative model or can be lucrative model, are the people that sell things on platforms like TikTok. And it will be like a set of Tupperware or like some slippers or something like that, right? And it's basically like a one-person shopping channel, like a TVC. And you can then, the UX on TikTok for this is beautifully simple. You can then buy the product they're talking about straight from that video with maybe 2 or 3 taps. And it's not the highest quality products, so it's very cheap. So then it's a no-brainer to make that decision. Oh, there's this person who I find personable.
Incredible.
They're demonstrating a product that, yeah, it's only £3. Sure, tap, done. And I think there's a beautiful simplicity to that. And maybe, to your point, we can look at how to implement that across areas where it isn't just sort of cheap tap, but it's actually much more important aspects of humanity. Talking of that, one final question before we kind of wrap this up, open to all of you. What gives you hope right now, either in the industry or beyond it?
What gives me hope is that choices made from expansion optimize a future and create a better result. And choices made from contraction are not optimal. So any choices made from contraction, and I mean things like choices made from anger or hate or frustration or depression, those choices, when they're made from that place, are not optimized. And choices made from expansion or choices made from love lead to optimized opportunities. And that sort of little philosophical thing gives me hope, because in the world right now, we're making a lot of choices from contraction. And I believe that we're actually going to show that these choices that are made from that place are not optimal. It's not just like, oh, we should love or love thy neighbor. It's that if in the tech industry wants to optimize constantly, you mean your OKRs, how'd you do on Q3? Like, if you really want to optimize, then you have to optimize by making choices from expansion. And the true place to make a choice from expansion is to make choices on the basis of love. And that little piece right there gives me hope that sooner or later, we will recognize that when we make choices on the basis of love, we're not just doing something nice, but we're actually optimizing every aspect of the thought that we're turning into a thing. The teams, the people, the money that we make, all of it. When we choose on the basis of love, we're optimizing the thing that we're creating.
That last sentiment is kind of to that point in terms of looking at expansion. I think the thing that gives me hope is kind of going back to a previous point of, I am optimistic about the rebellion. And what I mean by that is I kind of feel we're turning a corner, especially the younger generations, of being so attached to our screens, and actually people really craving more proper human interaction and actually more in-person interaction. And that gives me hope. So like the fact that, you hear in the news like, oh, there's a bunch of people in Gen Z who are just trying to get brick phones or just trying to leave their smartphones at home and all that sort of stuff. Like, that gives me hope, because I think, it was really easy for all of us to contract during lockdown and the years right after it. But I think the biggest thing we lost was that human connection. So I think that's, once that picks up a little bit more speed, or I hope it does, that rebellion picks up a little bit more speed, I'm hoping that will lead to more authentic, more in-person interactions, which is hopefully also going to change how we design. Even if it's just something as simple as like, fine, mediocrity might exist, but the nature of how we're designing it, references more in real world sort of, features or scenarios and that sort of thing, versus everything looking like the same pill-shaped button. So we'll see. But it's like that gives me hope.
I like that. Pushback against the pill-shaped buttons. I actually am designing a product right now that I purposefully working with get rid of pill-shaped buttons or anything that looks like a button. what gives me hope. Young people, basically. They have the energy and they have built-in hope for the future because they're going to be part of it, and they're not weighed down by the past and what's gone before. And so I have hope in our young people.
Share that with you.
Yeah. Also, like, just another plus on Charmaine's, like, the rebellion. I'm all about being living in that rebellious spirit. So yes, that also gives me hope. But one of the things that has really been giving me personally hope, I have found a really amazing, like, little corner in my world, in my community. And this is, I think it does go back to the in-person, or, you know, just like that human connection, is I'm finding out all these little weird things that either people in my network or my friends have just like, are just trying to carve out for themselves. Like, they're weird little things that they want to sell or things that they want to do. I'm working on my next project is going to be a just designing an ebook cover for a friend, and it's all about this like anti-corporate AI entity. It's so cute. And then I also just did a rebrand for a friend's shared trauma candle home goods brand. And like, it's just those little weird things that people hold so dear to their heart, but they want to lean into creativity and, you know, making their stuff like look just really good. It gives me a lot of energy, and it gives me hope that, hey, like, yeah, we as a group here are calling ourselves creatives, and some other people do not call themselves creatives, but they are. And so it kind of brings me closer to everyone, you know, that I can see these little embers of creativity coming from my community. So it's just very cool to see, and it keeps me going.
Yeah, I'd just like to share that it just sort of bringing everything together. And I was thinking, yeah, I feel a bit of people connection and just pulling all the words together. And I think it's sessions like this that remind you that you're not alone. And there are, you think, oh, what? Have I lost my creativity? Is the community lost its creativity? Is this happening? Is that happening? Because I feel like your world has just got smaller, except we're looking at a massive world through very tiny screens. And I think, yes, we're all kind of on screen now, but it's nice to remember that it's okay to sort of pause and, you know, just take those tiny little threads and connection. And it doesn't have to be more than that. It doesn't have to be complicated. So I'm hoping that there is this new simplicity and maybe serendipity in the connections, the way that we all kind of got together and we didn't know each other. And so, yeah, I think for me, it's just more moments like this is a reminder to myself to seek them out, but also to just let them happen. So I'm hoping that, yeah, the next generations are like, we want simplicity. We don't want complicated. We want the AI. I think that post, I remember Adam seeing something similar around, I want AI to do my washing, not do my artwork for me, something like that. So
I must say, I do think that there's a danger that we're heading for a more isolated world. And I mean, I enjoy the going into agencies and always having that sort of community around us. And when we first started Creative Orchestra 15 years ago, the great thing about it was this enormous buzz of having lots of crazy people running around doing crazy things with nobody knowing what we were actually doing. It was utter chaos, but we set it up that way because we just thought, well, let's not follow the normal scene. We had, 30 odd young people from every discipline going crazy, doing balmy things. And I loved that. It was great fun. It wasn't good for business. We very quickly realized that you don't make any money that way. But I think the danger is that we are heading for a world where we're going to get more and more isolated. And I think, this session is a good example of bringing people together, the opportunity to bring people together from all different mixes, slightly different areas of creativity, bring them together as one and discuss our ideas and share. I find very important. I've been on lots of different groups, like entrepreneurs groups and creative director groups and things, And I find it's really great when you sit in a room and, for example, we did one creative director group pulled by John Hegarty, and then we've got all these sort of heavyweight agencies with their big heavyweight creative directors, and then the middle ones, some of the more small ones. And everybody's on a same platform. What was really interesting was we all had the same problems, regardless of whether they were big or small. And I thought it was a real kind of normalization, but I think it helped us all understand. And then we had this problem of, how do we solve these problems? So I think we need a lot more bringing together of people, and we need more connectivity. And I think the danger is we could be losing connectivity. That's my thought for the day.
I think from listening to everything that everyone has said in answer to that question, the thread for me that comes through it all, and I think in an odd way, maybe it's not odd way. I think for me personally, right now, what I'm trying to find in my life is presence, and sit with presence and be able to experience that and take a positive route out of whatever it is my mind is trying to figure out through just simply being present. And I think from everything that everyone is saying, actually there is, to a lesser or greater extent, a degree of sitting with that presence in it and finding hope in whatever the outcome of being present is giving you. So thank you, or everyone, for your answers to that. And I think that feels like the perfect place to end this special roundtable. Thank you all so much, not just for today, but for everything that you have all brought to season 1. It has been an honor to hold space for these conversations and to share them with the world. I hope that those listening felt the same kind of connection and honesty and creativity that we have shared. Season 2 is already in the works, so if you've been moved by these voices, stick around and wait for the announcement of when season 2 is going to start to be scheduled and published. But if this episode resonated, then please send it to someone who needs to hear that, as we've already discovered, they're not alone. Thanks again, everybody, for being part of this, and I will see you all very soon. Awaiting Approval is a Cordial Fox production, hosted by Adam Jennings, produced by Adam Jennings and Jasmine Egner.